Good morning, Bob Connors, Chairman of the Police Building Construction Committee, 39 Annapolis Way.
Jeff Shaw, Next Architecture.
Eric Swan, Vice Chair, 14 Old Farm Way.
John Keller, 83 Scotland Road, Secretary.
Kevin Heffernan, Vertex Construction, OPM.
Mike Ryder, Police Chief.
Well, good morning, everybody. Last night, this was all sent to you all electronically. It's just kind of a handout of what I hope I have enough copies.
Everybody.
Enough? Okay. All right. I want to say I think the last 2 weeks have been probably some of the most productive. We've really drilled down on a lot of different items. So let's just go through the agenda. Okay, review of the January 10th meeting summary. Any comments or corrections? I want to thank both Jeff and Kevin for providing us with their meeting notes. It just really helps bolster the record. So, motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting notes.
And a second.
Secretary.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Okay. Jeff Shaw, you're up.
All right.
Contact architect.
So you all have enlarged plans. There's two extras right here that I brought with me. The new plan, most revised plan, takes into account the local architect and police chief, Mike Riley's options that he provided, as well as some of our own thinking. And Mike already gave me comments yesterday of things that need to be fixed, I think, in this plan. But the plan shows 9,400 square feet for the building. We did increase it a little bit, and based upon Mike's comments, we may have to tweak it a little bit more. But this is really to address the physical need of the space. The basic configuration remains similar to what we showed before. We'll get into site plan in a bit, which may impact how we locate the garage bays and the entrance, depending on which orientation the building has to the street. But as sort of coming up with a prototype, essentially, that worked for police operations, that's what our goal was. So you enter the vestibule in the main lobby. You have all the public spaces off the main lobby, 2 toilets, conference room, the dispatch, window, elevator, and stair up to the 2nd floor. Then going down the main corridor, back door to the dispatch room, sergeant's office, gear storage, report writing for patrol, break room that's shared. It's really not a room per se, it's more like an alcove, break room alcove. And the interview space that's shared with booking, the booking area, detention, sally port, and the garage in the back. We've moved all the mechanicals to the back of the building. And then there's a back stair which is open to the corridor, and a janitor's closet we've tucked under the stair. So we pretty much used all the available space we have here in the plan for the needs of the 1st floor. Some of the comments that Mike gave, I think, are on point and really need to be discussed as part of this potential for maybe increasing the size of the building. One of which is dispatch doesn't have their own toilet, which should be there. That's sort of the industry standard. We do have 2 toilets in the public lobby, but you'll note that there isn't any facilities for staff on the first floor, so they would be using the public toilet, which is also a potential question, whether we can fit a toilet back in dispatch, and that could be shared with the sergeants and patrol on the first floor is a question, just kind of like how the break room is. So that's something that should be considered, I think. And also, Mike mentioned interview conference room configuration as to whether or not that could be improved for their use. And then finally, the elevator machine room access from the dispatch room, and his point was that technician service people would have to be going in and out of dispatch to service that room, which I think he's right about is a potential security issue, but also shouldn't really be happening for a facility that should be able to be quiet and used 24/7. So I think those criticisms are all well taken and should be fixed as part of this plan. There is a minor change that we need to make to the booking room to make sure holding will work the way that Mike wants to use it. Basically, we'll go from the sally port directly into holding area with the booking desk off of that, which I think is fine. There's space that can happen there. On the second floor, enter into a small vestibule to the training room, and then to the side is the admin area, starting with the admin assistant, executive officer. There is one staff toilet or one toilet for this floor in addition to the locker rooms. Then you have chief with the IT closet between the two offices. You also have a conference room, the detective's office, which has now migrated to the exterior of the building, which gives them a window, which I think is nicer than where they were in the middle. Locker rooms, men's and women's at the back, and this was the main reason for the increase in size, is that in order to fit all of the lockers, all of the plumbing fixtures, everything in with handicap access configuration, we needed a couple of extra feet at the back of the building, so it grew the building a little bit. We then have a section for armory and weapons cleaning, evidence processing, the evidence storage room, and the drugs and guns evidence storage room. And off of training, there is a storage room for training needs. In the middle of the building on the corridor, we've located those rectangles there are all storage cabinets or closets that could be used. We expect the copier, paper storage, supplies, all of that stuff would have to be located in this general area. So essentially, the corridor becomes the workroom for the building for mailings and things like that. So it's activating the corridor where in another building we might actually make this a separate space. So I think we're heading in the right track, but there are some deficiencies that need to be addressed. And Mike, I don't remember if you had any specific comments. There's one, I think, specific comment on the second floor is the closet, right?
Yeah,
The IT closet, right off your
can't be
office.
accessed from my office.
Yeah.
That people are in and out of that all the time.
Yes. So that needs to be relocated.
Has to come up the deputy chief's office.
Yeah,
because
that's
he's
fine.
usually-
Yeah.
He's usually the one doing this stuff,
We'll
so.
move the door on the other side.
Oh,
I mean, some of these spacing, like, the deputy chief's office, it's really tight in there. We'll have to adjust that spacing, but we can play around with the doors. The other comment Mike made, he didn't mention it here, but there's no closet space for the two offices. They have wet gear, they have other things they need to hang up. So either that is a wardrobe, which we have shown, a very small 18-inch wide piece of furniture that it's a big cabinet with a pole in it, or you create a closet that takes up floor space. So that's another consideration as well.
Just a suggestion, if the IT closet was relocated and that space was divided, you'd have back-to-back closets, Mike, for your gear.
Well,
that
that's,
absolutely
that was
I
his
think that would
first
be, yeah.
architectural plan, had the back-to-back closet.
Right.
We just couldn't find a spot for IT to go anywhere else, so I used those closets for
Is it
IT.
possible, the training storage, what's actually you're moving chairs, Mike, what do you typically put in? They move chairs and desks?
Yeah,
into
you fold up
training?
those training tables, you roll them in the chairs. and stuff, you throw them in there.
But it's also for EOC operations
Yes.
too. That's where they're gonna end up storing a lot of that material that you have to bring
The
out.
phones, the manuals, everything that we have to break out when
Mhm.
Bob, could I make a comment before you get too far along on your design? I noticed you got your electrical room inside. Your main switch has to be within
Yes.
15 feet.
Yes, I'm aware. Yeah,
Oh.
so it's not, obviously there's more details to come, but that's, we have to sort of sort out exactly how the electrical is gonna work there.
Okay, so you're gonna put the main switch in the boiler room?
It's too early for that level of
Oh.
detail.
We're still at the sausage making stage of this,
Oh.
trying to get all the boxes to kind of line up and fit, so.
Yeah,
Just keep that in mind.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
that's all your code,
We've got requirements for sprinkler being right at the service entrance of the building as well as the main switch. So I think it's something we can solve. It's just, there's more to solve before we get to that level of detail. So that's basically the layout. I think we have, as I said before, I think we have some more work to do to tweak this layout so it works better for the police department. But before we get too much further away from this, we have to consider the size of the building, costs of that as we continue to kind of creep it up a little bit, and the layout on site. So I don't want to go too much further into the building if we're going to change some things because of cost or because of site layout.
why don't I jump in to start? I mean, I think that we were at 11,000 square feet, which would be probably more today's standard. Through being innovative and efficient, we're down to the 9,400 square feet, which I think is a great effort. And certainly, as I look at this, the individual areas certainly are not excessive. I mean, is it possible to reduce some of these larger areas by a few feet to fit in stuff? Sure, but I think where our charge from the Board of Selectmen is we get 6.5, and that's a box that's got inflexible sides at this stage of our process here. So for me, I like the whole layout. Is you fit everything in there nicely, and these room sizes are as efficient as they really can be. So the question is, to fit in these last couple of pieces, I mean, you've already reduced the training room down from 1,000 square feet, Mike, to 670.
Yeah.
On the locker rooms, how many lockers, the only reason saying this, we're doing a locker room on another project with 40 employees, and the combined locker space for man and woman is 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, these are big lockers.
These are 3-foot things, yeah, I mean, I would, of all the things we want to make sure we get right is the locker room.
Absolutely, and I think that has been, that's a refrain that I hear from every public safety department I work with. The folks that mainly are gonna use this locker room don't use much else in the building, and so this is their home. And they have a lot of gear, they have a lot of stuff. Typically, it used to be 20 years ago, 2-foot wide lockers were the standard. Now it's 3 feet is the standard. So that's what we planned on.
What did you put on, what do you get per account here? What are you
25.
anticipating?
Yeah, 10 women's, 25 men.
So 25 men's locker room? What about admins, administrative, because obviously our officers will be using your own closets, Mike, we have to typically, I mean, for you and deputy.
Yeah, we
What
wouldn't
about
use the
your
locker room.
sergeants would be?
Sergeants would be in the
Locker room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
When
25 seems high on a count for, I think we're at 12 full-time
Yeah.
at this
The
point.
part-timers still need, they have the same gear, they still need the same space. That's the issue you run into, Bob.
Okay, so that gets you back to your 20,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
okay.
I mean, I'd love to say, well, the part-timers don't need a locker.
No,
It'd
no.
make life easy,
Yeah,
but
no,
they
that's-
carry the exact same gear as a
Yeah.
full-time.
No, that's not the requirement for 2 stalls in the men's room.
We can look at whether or not.
Is
the
it an
plumbing count would
occupancy
allow
for-
us
yeah,
to-
I
to-
mean-
To drop that down. Usually we can. If you go just strictly by the plumbing code and the count that you would have to have, it's probable that we can take one of those out. We look at it sometimes from a shift perspective, you know, usually it's not like you've got, if there's 25, literally 25 people in there, it's not typical that you'd have, you know, 1 at a time, 2, 3 at a time. It's, you know, the whole shift is changing, and so you've got 2 shifts of people coming and going, and so the use is potentially higher at that specific time. So it's
The
more
only time I
convenient.
foresee it being a real high use, shifts are typically 3 officers coming in, 3 officers leaving, is during a storm or a big event where I'm calling everybody in. Then you have 15, 20 people that could potentially be in there, but those are unusual circumstances.
The only other thing I'll mention is currently there's just 2 toilet fixtures and no urinal, and typically in the men's room,
Right, you'd have
we
1.
have 1 and 1. So if we take the toilet out, we would probably still need the space for a urinal.
Mhm. I just think it's good to walk through these so that we look at these.
Now, when I look at the first floor, Jeff, I think a real easy fix would be where the report room is. Switch that, the report room and the interview room. The whole idea of that side vestibule is when we're releasing prisoners, or someone's coming to pick up a prisoner, or someone's coming in, we don't have to march them through the police station, the working area of the police station.
Yep.
So if that interview room was right off the vestibule with a door there, you know, somebody coming in to release a prisoner, the prisoner goes into that interview room, and signs all his paperwork with the bail clerk, and then walks right out into that vestibule, doesn't have to go into the working area of the police station at all.
So you don't need the interview room accessible from booking.
Well, it's right across the hall.
Okay.
So I
That's good,
mean,
close
if
enough.
we can't control the guy across the hall, we got some problems. So
Okay.
he shouldn't be leaving at that point. And then you can turn that into the interview room. You can close off that room from the booking door, from the booking room on the plan, and that could be the report room. You could even get rid of that wall, and that could just be a report out.
Do you still want 3 stations, report rating stations?
2 would be sufficient. You know, in the gear room, if they have the lockers that they need, we can find other places for different gear, and you could use that space for toilets. You know, so
What if we put the gear into the garage and just put it on the back wall of the garage?
absolutely. I mean, there's things we can come up with for that.
That's great.
But instead of adding space to the footprint, if we could, that 119 square feet, you don't need that for a toilet, but if you could turn that into the toilets downstairs, it's right across from dispatch, so the dispatcher doesn't have to walk far. I think that would suffice. So,
Okay.
Just going back to the 2nd floor, and now we've got the floating IT closet. Do we have an IT, I don't have my glasses, and I apologize. Do we have an IT closet on the 1st floor?
No.
Okay.
Just one. I mean,
So
we
we could
anticipate just a switch at this point.
Yeah.
And, but what we are not locating in here is the 911 equipment.
yeah,
And that's gonna take
a lot of equipment.
Usually, they require 32 square feet, the size of a piece of plywood, basically. You put a piece of plywood on the floor, and that's what they want for their space.
So what I'm looking at is if we can use that gear room as
Technology.
technology, and, I mean, all you basically need there is a toilet and a hand washing station, right? To somehow utilize that space. Mike, just so I'm clear, you want to flip interview to where reports is,
yes,
and then have a door within the locked vestibule?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you can control it. No one gets in,
yeah, we buzz them in
okay.
if somebody's coming in there, and then it's controlled release.
Well, Mike, if you don't mind, I might explore at least getting report and interview maybe on the right side of the plan, and the dispatch, toilet, break room, and technology space on the left side of the plan.
Yeah.
I think it'll still work. I just want to, if we're gonna have windows, it'd be nice to have a space that would use it rather than a technology office or a toilet on the outside wall. That's one of the reasons I'm not thrilled about having the toilets on the front corner of the building, mainly because less attractive to have windows into those rooms. But I think it'll still work for your needs, but I may try to flip things around a little bit.
Yeah.
Why don't we go right to
Put the comments down there.
Eric, why don't you, what comments, what suggestions do you have?
I think it's a great advancement.
Yes, I certainly do.
Thinking of the, the CMU walls in terms of holding and how that line jogs a little bit more now and where the front zone is. I know it's not solved yet, but boiler and mechanical squished in the garage spaces, which will be cold if it's winter and the doors are open and events are happening. You've got insulation, and you've got piping up above, you've got just some insulation things and details to worry about later.
Yeah, we expect, well, mainly those doors should be closed. It's less like a fire station, they usually get open and closed right away. We shouldn't have them open long-term, especially in the wintertime. And we'll have heaters in there as well, so I understand the point. It is in a colder potential part of the building, and so there could be issues with pipes freezing, but I would hope we don't.
I like having the mechanical access through that, from that garage. That way we don't have to escort the workers throughout the station like we do now.
Yep.
So, you open a garage door, there's really nothing sensitive in a garage, and they can do their work.
And as this grows a little bit, is there any thought to the third floor of, is there anything that could go up there to help shrink the plan footprint again?
Usable space up to the attic.
Yeah.
You wind up paying for it if it becomes more than storage. That's the problem here. We had a couple 100 square feet up there, and
Still 50.
it's still gonna be adding to the budget where.
One of the things we don't have in the plan is any dead records or long-term archive storage. I think that's gonna
Yeah,
go
that's,
there.
I think that's probably the extent of what,
Janitor closets, that's a small area, but it's important you store your mops and things like that. I didn't see-
Yeah, there's just the one on the first
On
floor.
the first floor?
Sandwiched underneath the stair.
Oh, okay.
So the problem is, yes, we do not have one on the second floor, which would be nice to not have to drag the mop bucket up there and supplies, but you got the elevator.
Yeah, exactly, it is what it is.
And then the last comment is, if you picked it up, is just the front of the building has a stair and a toilet and a vestibule.
Exactly, not very attractive.
It'd be very creative. That's all the comments I had.
Bushes.
John, your comments?
No, I'm all set. I'm all set.
Kevin, how about yourself?
One thing I was looking at was potentially, in other police stations that we've done, I usually see like the front lobby vestibule like only with one toilet, a unisex, anyone can use it. And since we don't have a officer's toilet in the secure area behind dispatch, is there potential to move, only keep one toilet up front and move the other one behind the conference, between the conference and the sergeant's area? Still close enough so the men's of pipe.
That's what I was thinking as well, and I think the only thing I'd like to do to confirm this is to have a discussion with the building and plumbing inspector to make sure that they don't want specifically to have a men's and women's toilet that's publicly accessible from the lobby. Because in that case, you'd have this unisex single-user toilet out in the lobby and then another one behind the secure area.
Put that conference room up in the front corner with the windows.
Yeah, I could switch some things around, but it's part of the plumbing code that they need to have public toilets, men's, women's public toilets available. So if the inspectors are okay with the second one being behind the secure area, then I don't have any issues with just one
It's
toilet.
much better than what we have now.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, your walk-in traffic on a daily basis
Yeah.
is pretty,
Summertime it's busy, this time of year.
Well, you're also in a prominent spot.
Right. This time of year we get a lot, but it's not crazy.
yeah.
Summertime, we get 3 people a day coming in, do you have a public restroom? And, no, go to Dunkin' Donuts. So, but, yeah, the restroom will get used, but I don't foresee it getting where people are waiting in line to use the
Yeah.
restrooms. I think one would do.
So let's, if you could follow up on that, Jeff, as you say, with both the plumbing and building inspector. Again, we're still a little bit above our budget wherever we can reduce some costs or solve a footprint problem. The public bathrooms, Mike, really don't help your operation at all. Moving that conference room or adding some of this other stuff.
Moving that conference room to the front corner wouldn't affect anything, so
Yeah.
you can sandwich those 2 bathrooms and make one of them for internal use and one public.
Yep.
That works for me, that's fine.
Chief, how about yourself? Certainly you've chimed in and I know you haven't had a chance to look at this quite as,
No, I think it's a great start. I emailed Jeff yesterday with some of my suggestions, and, you know, it's been fantastic responding to them. So I have no real major issues. You know, it's gonna be tight, but we knew that going in, and I think it's a plan, it's a design that could work. You know, do some tweaks, and I think it's a design that could work. I think it's a really good start, so.
on the elevator access room, like through dispatch, I mean, typically, it's once a year that they're in there.
Yeah, I know.
If
I don't know.
I know it's not,
The accreditation standards, because dispatch is supposed to be completely sealed and no public access at all into dispatch. So I'll research with accreditation standards.
okay.
I didn't know if you could just flip that door to an exterior door that just stays closed, that just blends into the building, that gets you opened once a year.
There's not a problem with making an exterior entrance. The only issue I'd have is I feel like that makes it less secure. That the potential is there's more chance that somebody could get into the machine room and you know, do something to it from.
The cost of an exterior door, and then the aesthetics, it becomes, well, let's do this, let's just look at it. If it's not an accreditation issue,
If it's not an accreditation issue, then if they're in there once a year, it's no big deal. But if it's an
Headroom.
If it's an accreditation issue, then yeah, I'll have some issues with it.
Okay.
But I'm
well,
not,
we're not looking to plow forward here and.
Right, oh, yeah.
And not hit all the
Yeah.
points on accreditation, but. So Jeff, if you could, work on that, Mike.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, why don't you can make the call on that, on whether it's gonna be an accreditation
Yep.
issue or not, so. I think if we do that.
Yeah.
But I think this is great progress, making everything fit. I mean, there's not one area here where my usual contractor, landlord mind says, you got too much square footage, we need to move this back. I mean, everything is right where it should be. All right, why don't we move on to the site plan and the orientation?
Yeah, so I apologize, I did not print individual copies of this, just because I thought getting it smaller would become unreadable. But there are 2 site plans here, I'm gonna spread them out. One of which has the building in perpendicular to Morgan Ave. The other one is parallel to. And the information from the engineer, civil engineer that sort of laid these out was that the perpendicular orientation is far more problematic. From a topography grading standpoint, the site's gonna slope a lot more. We potentially would have retaining walls that we'd have to build. And then there is some significant questions as to the amount of extra cost that would be adding to the project. That being said, the parallel option, because of the topography, they would like to have the driveway entrance on the lower part of the site, which means you sort of have this serpentine parking layout, so it's less efficient parking. And the building is set off the street with parking in front. So we certainly could explore the driveway coming in from the upper part of the site, but then you have to deal with the same grading issues that we were concerned about before. Both of these plans were produced with a slightly different conceptual view of the floor plan, so they don't necessarily show the garage doors exiting the end of the building like we have on our current plan. But I think both of them would work in that configuration. I think the entrance to the building currently works best with the building facing the end perpendicular to Morgan Ave. If we were to go the parallel approach, I think I would change how the lobby works a little bit. I think we have the room to do it within the floor plan, but I'd change how you enter the building so that the entry does face Morgan Ave rather than the fire station.
The Sally Port and garage doors, would you have to flip those up when we communicated about that on? If you
Yeah.
kept it perpendicular?
I think both would work in this configuration. Both site plans would work with the garage doors facing out the end. There is the possibility that, maybe they would work a little better in the parallel approach if at least one of the doors was facing Morgan Ave. But we don't have the depth of our building to do them back to back. So we would have to potentially look at making a dog leg on the building or maybe wider. But since I think they work okay coming out, it's just you'd have to take a sharper turn from the left going into the back or back into it.
Eric, would you, to offset some of that concern out back, is moving this building 5 feet closer to the street. It doesn't quite get you parallel to your town hall and your fire station, but if that's the difference of making that work.
I think at 5 feet that you could, one could argue that it's actually a betterment, because as you turn the corner, you're not looking behind the police fire station, you're looking down the street and
You're focusing at the police
yeah,
station.
you can see it. And we don't want to hide the building, we want to see it and access it and find it. The building is though laid out with a design that you have a front and you have a back, and when you turn it sideways, it kind of goes a little crazy.
It's not terrible. I think it works okay, because I've always looked at the building design as we were doing it as to whether or not you could enter it from the front out or the side.
Mhm.
And so if we were entering from the side, I'd flip the vestibule and the bathroom conference room position so that you could enter on the left-hand corner, towards the left-hand corner,
Sure.
over here, straight into the building. And then the only drawback is that the officer's entry, staff entry, becomes a little bit more prominent, which may become more confusing to somebody driving up to the building, which door is the front door. So we'd have to design the building such that the front door of the building was accentuated and the staff entry was downplayed. So that is a little bit less desirable, but I do think having the garage doors facing something other than Morgan Ave would be preferable, and both site plan orientations achieve that.
So if we considered moving the building, bumping it forward, a minimal amount to see if that would help a little bit would be one approach.
Is this, as long as it's 20 feet back, we're not running. Yeah, so we have 10 feet, 12 feet. Yep.
Yeah, that's approximately, the perpendicular approach is approximately the same orientation or same setback as the town hall and the fire station, so it kind of sets up that same rhythm.
Right, but to be within zoning, you're 20 feet, you're 20-foot setback, and so right now you're thinking it's 30 feet.
Yeah.
So it's got about 10 feet of play.
Okay. So, certainly we're not gonna go for variance on a new building, so somewhere between the 20 and 25-foot setback is.
Right.
But I like your idea too, Mike, Eric, that as you're going down High Road and you turn down Morgan, your police station does become a little more prominent.
You've got plenty of room on the side with 10-foot side yard setback to tweak this a little bit too. There is some grade climb here, and if this comes up 2 feet, that still from where you are at 20, you're about 26 or 27, 28, 29, 30. You bring this up, we want it to be closer to what we were over here, which was 28 or 29, it's 28, 28 and a half. So 28 and a half puts you naturally right about here. So
Yeah.
that works.
The engineer felt that the building would probably be at elevation 30.
Okay.
What's Morgan at?
Morgan Ave
31.
slope says 34, I think, at this point.
But it averages out, because this is 30, and it goes to 28, and it goes back to
Okay,
30,
okay.
actually.
So we're still above the
Yeah.
low point of the road.
Right.
Just looking at this outside of the isolation as a police station, is still, we still utilize the fire station as a public polling place.
Mhm.
And we're now, I'm almost looking at this, is it possible to flip this layout? Where the parking is on the fire station side,
Yeah.
and then your driveway is in a lower elevation. And then when we're voting, we all, and I vote in this particular precinct, so we know the influx of cars at one time. You're gonna get surrounded, Mike, so
It's not very often.
yeah, personally, for me, I like the perpendicular look for a small building.
Mhm.
I think it works out better.
I think it'll. I think
Soil
it'll be
conditions
nicer.
are gonna be what they are. I mean, I was actually more relieved after we did our quick test holes, that we didn't find, Jimmy Hoffer and others down there, but
Is there any concern if we did that, with the building being very, we don't, certainly doesn't show where this house is, but this house is approximately right here.
right.
Are we concerned now that our building is going to?
I think it's a good question. I'll reach out to the neighbors over there, or we can, when we revise the plan, if that's what we do. Probably not having all the cars coming in and out, if there's an event at the fire station. This parking is certainly gonna serve, it's just gonna become overwhelmed with anything going at the fire station. So having a building versus having all the cars coming in and out, potentially a few times a month maybe something. But again, that's just kind of my view. But Eric, what's your thoughts? What do you see?
I don't think we're building it overly tall in terms of the height, still within zoning, right? So in terms of the
Yeah.
house, and if the house sits up a little bit higher, at least on the street, it's the backyard, they become level or even. And as you said, that you'd be a good neighbor because it's a pretty quiet backyard.
There would be really
So
nothing
nobody-
happening on the backside of the
There are
building, except for
no
the
doors.
elevator machine room door.
Well, and so the only thing we just need to be careful about is if we have any split units or anything else, that they're not out there sandwiched between a wall and the building or a house that are making noise issues.
Yep. Yeah, and we can put those at the end, the other end of the building, potentially, or an enclosure around it.
There's also a bald spot in the trees that are in that area, you can see right to that neighbor's house, especially the garage that's coming
Right.
down, so the only thing I'd recommend is making sure we fill that in with a couple of arborvitae's or something that will.
Some landscape.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out, usually Mike Doyle's on the email list, so Mike has seen, he would have gotten copies of all this that went out last night. I'll reach out to Mike and see if he can work with his neighborhood to decide whether, I mean, if I go by, if it was if I lived here, would I rather have a bunch of cars coming in and out next to my house, or would I rather have a landscape? And having the parking for the fire department, that'll be the next step of why didn't we anticipate that when we don't go vote, so. But,
It would make more sense to be able to have that overflow, because people park there now.
right. John, how about your thoughts? What do you,
I do like that idea of, shifting over, not approaching on you all the time, coming across, and it gets pretty busy in the voting time. I like the idea of moving it forward and keeping it perpendicular, because when it's parallel, you don't even see the police station anymore. question I have, we can have driveway around the left side, or just strictly in and out on that one side?
Well, I think we moved the bill, if we flip it, I think it's just strictly in and out. If we had it in this configuration, it's possible we could sneak a driveway over to the fire department side, so you'd have a second way out of the site, which is definitely desirable from public safety point of view.
Especially where the cruisers going in.
Would there be, we'd probably have to have a walkway going down, let's call it the north side of the building, if it's perpendicular.
Yeah, on this side,
Yeah. You'd
I
have a
think
minimum
we could have,
walkway.
we probably could have a walkway back there. I don't think there would be a need for it
Okay.
necessarily. We could
Because
have-
you're flipping all of your access, you're booking door.
There's no doors
Gotcha.
on this side of the building, which would now be on this side, there would be no doors, unless we had an access for elevator machinery, there'd be no reason to have
Okay.
access from that side.
I think that would even probably be more welcome by the neighborhood, because you'll just have really no traffic, so. Kevin, how about your thoughts?
No, those are the only ones, now you gotta flip it over. But when you flip it over, Jeff, does that allow you now to change the configuration of the front area with the elevator and the machine room going, making that area just
Well, we're
lay out
just,
completely
right
different?
now, we're talking about flipping the entire plan, so
Yep.
it doesn't
It
really
would go over
change.
to that side,
It-
but now, the location of dispatch and everything else, can we potentially reconfigure?
I could reconfigure the plan, but right now, we're just talking about flipping the entire plan,
Yep.
not the elements within it, but I could look at, and this is something, you know, anecdotally, I was thinking of anyways, it would be a more efficient way of structuring the building if all of our floor penetrations were on one side. So the stair and the elevator were on the other side of the building, lining up with this stair, and, you know, the structural bays would work better that way, a more efficient type of structural layout. So to your point, Kevin, I can definitely look at that, in addition to making some of the other changes we talked about.
It also puts the chief, the XO, and the sergeants with windows looking out on the parking lot of people
Yeah.
approaching.
Chief?
Sometimes I don't want to see that.
We want to see you.
My comments, it's a great start. I think Jeff's been very responsive to my suggestions when these are must-haves and these are like-to-haves, and I think it's a good start, so I have no complaints.
So flipping the parking over to the fire side,
I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, at voting time, we get a lot of overflow up into the front parking lot of the police station now, and it just is what it is. I mean, if we get overflow parking into the police parking, it doesn't happen very often, so, I mean, it's just part of the charm of Newbury.
okay. You know what I'm gonna do? I want to get some public comments. So I want to open this up to you people so you can come up, look at the plan. And you get a better view of what we've been talking about, what we're trying to accomplish. So rather than just wait to the end, you want to come on up and take a look at
Can
the,
I make a comment?
yeah, sure.
Because you're gonna have an elevator in
Name, address,
Craig Lowell, Orchard Street in Byfield.
thank you.
Because you're gonna have an elevator and heavy equipment in this building, I would strongly suggest that this building goes on its own 25 kVA transformer. If not, flicker's gonna be noticeable to the neighbor next door. So I can go over that if you want. I got a good idea.
We'll obviously, we're gonna be working with the utility as well, and they'll probably tell us what size transformer, they're gonna put a transformer here on more than, without a doubt, we'll have our own transformer.
Yeah. And as I mentioned at previous meetings, probably the cheapest way would be to have National Grid run single phase, one section of single phase in on private property adjacent to that single house. Put a push brace on the street pole, put a fuse there. That transformer would have to be moved one section. And so your transformer would be in the back of the property, so you just could siphon from there into the main switch.
Any questions on Tony, on the site plan?
No, not the site plan, the layout of
Well, what I want to do, we're still going to, just because we're talking about the site plan, and what I'm trying to do is just direct everything to that. At the end, we can recap whatever you want, but it's, you're looking at a little plan versus a big plan, so I wanted to make sure that. So we can turn this around here. So your fire station is here.
So you're gonna.
Look, this is gonna do a reverse here. This will slide over a little bit. This would be typically landscape, quiet area, but now this parking gets to be utilized for voting.
So would there be access along in here?
It doesn't need to be any access.
Well, I was thinking if you really put a single phase and put the transformer back here,
Well, there would be a setback, and it would be underground. The wire would be underground.
you're gonna go underground from the street in? Wait, wow.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna do that with primary or secondary?
Well, again, gotta talk to the utility. The utility usually makes the call, but we typically would want everything
Well,
on
you can
site to be
request
underground. We would typically want anything on site to be underground.
Oh,
Come
really?
down the pole and then go underground.
More from the emergency management
Yeah,
standpoint,
in
that
that case, you'd
when
probably.
all hell breaks loose,
Wouldn't that be
The last
primary,
thing
then
we
go
want is-
transformer to the back?
Yeah,
corroded
use this as a
neutral.
riser pole and then.
That's right.
Pad mount that.
Yeah, it's right off the
Give you
driveway.
that.
Put it out here,
Yeah, that would work.
blend this, it would be here, it's gonna be right off the, which is perfect. Also the driveway.
And what it does too is as you slide this down, the soil conditions improve.
And there's always the possibility, depending on how we want to structure the building, that because of the grading, we sink part of the building, use it as a retaining wall. And so it starts to hide some of the height
Right.
facing the neighbor.
Well, I think we're putting the parking on this side here, we get to blend in too,
Yeah.
and deal with drainage, kind of in a global fashion rather than.
All you're actually doing is just moving it down. the road.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is kind of where we dug the test holes for it, but all the parking is over here, so here's Morgan here.
Well, bring it up.
But,
That's 28.
we're really in the center parking for when you vote and you utilize.
Just moving it.
So this, picture this, we're just flipping this over like this. So here, that makes it probably done enough. All right, the building's here, parking's here, fire department's here. So,
There's no way you're gonna be trying to build it.
you know what, my preference,
I'm just asking.
yeah, you know what, we're keeping that option open. If soil conditions were so terrible, that it was punitive, but at the end of the day, it's just,
Here, just moving it down Morgan Avenue a little bit and bringing it out a little bit.
we're gonna bring it out, this is back 30 feet, it can come out 10 feet up to. So, the original thought was to have everything kind of lined up as a starting point.
Quite a distance between the fire station.
Yeah, you're gonna have all that parking, so, I mean, this parking is probably 60 feet wide.
Yeah.
You're gonna have 20, yeah, probably 60.
It's usually about 6 feet.
So we're gonna go back to the regular agenda items, and then we'll go back to the end for comments again, all right? But just wanted to give everybody a chance to look at a plan that, Jeff, why don't you just go into your, although it's a kind of a moot point now, if we're gonna keep it perpendicular on your site plan narrative.
Oh, well, we talked about most of it, so I don't think we need to really get into it. I think at this point, it would be helpful to have a direction from the group as to which location, what configuration generally we want to make the site so that we can start producing civil drawings that respond to that, as well as, most particularly, we need to get the borings dug and test pits dug, so if we know exactly the orientation of the building, I can more accurately direct those activities.
Well, why don't we entertain a motion to reverse the layout perpendicular to Morgan Ave with a minimum setback of 20 feet off Morgan Ave. And then however that plays out,
What's the starting point?
yeah, as a starting point,
Sure.
okay? And
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we take the site plan that is perpendicular, the layout that is perpendicular to Morgan Ave, that we flip the site plan presented.
let's just call this A.
So we're going with option A.
I'm gonna go with option A as marked, but it's reversed.
Is that drawing gonna show, indicate 20 feet setback?
You know what, it's a minimum of 20 feet because that's zoning. I'm gonna leave it up to,
Yeah, I think for the purposes of laying out our borings and test pits, if we shift the building 10 feet, it's not gonna change the soil structure much, so I wouldn't worry about the specifics there.
but from the final site placement of the building, whether it's 20, 25 feet.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it 20 foot off.
Okay,
until we
so
have final-
that's what I'm saying, leave the 20-foot minimum, Kevin, would be the way to go. All right, we have a second. Did you
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, so item 7, estimate of probable cost. Kevin and I are still working on some items on that. So the existing schedule of probable cost from our last meeting is going to be carried forward for the moment. I think the big thing everyone should understand is, this is, again, everything's kind of moving pieces, so our estimates of cost are just that. As we start to make these refinements, we're gonna have a better idea to anticipate cost. But ultimately, it is the bid process that's going to tell us that $450 refrigerator could be $690, it could be $380. We don't know yet, so all we can do is look back over the last 6 months for empirical records of what similar work has gone for. So, for a housekeeping item, we have an invoice from Veritech. It was all part of your package. Anyone get any questions for Kevin?
What's that?
Okay. What we've done in the past is move to approve an invoice that's been presented and then authorize me as chair to sign off and then submit it to. Geez, Kevin, with $350, you should have brought the coffee today, with all that information kicking
I'll
around.
have to make sure that happens next time, just turn the camera off, my wife can see this.
Yeah.
Almost like I have a donut.
Very good. So do we have a motion to accept the invoice dated January 4th?
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, second?
Second?
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. And the caveat is you're authorizing the chair to sign it, sign it on behalf of the committee. Okay. Chief, why don't we go to you? Mike has been working with CTS, which is a telecommunication company that does towers, communications. And Mike had a discussion with one of the representatives on, can we reuse that tower, or if we have to replace it, can we almost do a bid, a build bid design, use that as a basis for doing the plan?
Todd Williams from TCS, I had a discussion with him, and he said the cost of the tower isn't in the actual tower itself. He said the tower sections are fairly cheap, depending on if you have to get the fortified, if you're in a specific wind zone or something like that. But they're $300 to $500 a section, so it's not a big deal. He said that the money comes in with the labor, the crane and the labor to erect the tower, and the engineering is where all the money comes in. He estimated, without looking at our site or anything like that, that would be right around 40 grand. He said it'd probably be cheaper to erect a new tower than to take down the tower that's there and add on to it, just because of the labor and the crane and the labor to take that tower down and then re-erect it in a different location. He said he'd be more than glad, once we get a site, the building layout finalized, he'd be more than glad to come in and sit down with the committee and discuss the tower and the costs. And he did say one thing about the IT room or the radio room or wherever the radio will be coming into the building should be close to the tower. I guess he said the longer the run, the less signal strength or something like, I don't know.
There's two ways to do it. You either put the equipment near the antenna and then run fiber essentially from that location back into the building, and then you can run as far as you
Yeah,
want.
that's what we do now.
Or you run the actual antenna wire down the tower and into the radio room, and that's more typical. In that case, you're paying for the heavier gauge, expensive wire, and the more feet you go, the more signal loss you have. So the better fidelity, you want that radio equipment to be as close to the tower as possible, plus the cost of the wire itself, because it's big pumping stuff.
So that's the IT room. If you
So
located
that
your
network
IT room next to where the tower is, and then we could just run, that's what we do now, and it works out great.
So I would say that we probably would, in this configuration, we'd probably be either having a tower on the back side of the building, neighbor-facing side of the building, fire station side of the building, or maybe we can configure it between the two driveways off the back of the building. So those are probably the three likely locations for the tower. If we were to put a new one down at the bottom of the site, which I also expect reusing the existing tower is more costly.
Yeah, that's what we
It's just,
did, so.
just even if you kept it in place and didn't even extend it, creating all the site work, duct bank to get from town hall all the way down to the new police site is probably more than the 40K.
Right.
Then to build a new tower.
I asked about that, and I forgot to put that in the memo. I asked about that, and he said, just the site work alone is gonna cost you more than $40,000, and then plus, you know, he strongly recommended having a tower on site. He did say, aren't you planning on renovating town hall? And if you add on to that, you have to remove that tower anyway, so.
What may make sense is similar to the parking and voting. If we're gonna put in a new communications tower, we probably ought to look at if it could be a dual purpose. Will it meet all the fire station needs at the same time? So that as this process continues, we're gonna have one tower, then we'll meet all needs. So I think if we can focus on that, that would make sense. Kevin, you were going to provide a cash flow projection for the next 90 days, just to assist the town on funding expenditure.
Jeff and I touched on that last night. We're fine tuning the numbers from Jeff, because obviously he's the more expenditure at this point, so you should
Right.
have something by the end of today.
Okay.
Jeff, or is that more like Monday?
No, today's fine, as long
We'll be able to get to it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need a specific breakdown,
Nope.
a breakout. It's just going to be, are we going to consume 250K in the next 90 days, or, I mean, I think that's what the town needs to know.
Okay.
Just so we keep the income stream going. Okay, so any other questions for Chief on the tower?
Is this typically bought as bid out, or is this a service? that's
Typically,
under contract?
the town would purchase this through a separate vendor. And in the contract for construction, we would have the underground duct bank that's required. And potentially, we've done it where the general contractor actually pours the foundation, depending on the foundation. The problem is it's a catch-22. The vendor for the tower will not give you the foundation design until you sign the purchase order for the tower, and they engineer it. And so, in order for us to put it in the bid set, we need all that information way up front so that we can actually put those foundation details in the bid set so the contractor knows what they're bidding on. But usually what happens is you don't end up selecting the vendor until after that point. And so we end up with a placeholder in the construction set and then a change order to go one way or the other, and it gets into a big mess. So the best way to do it is kind of have a break between the two.
So have it turnkey from our vendor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? I don't know if it's something, Mike, can you provide the contact information who your regional guy is
Yeah.
for Jeff?
Yep. I'll, you know,
Or is it wisdom to invite them to a meeting so we can hash this out? But to your point, I think we're gonna carry this as a separate task.
The tower in this
Procurement.
case may be small enough that Todd could tell us over the phone, here's a typical foundation detail for this type of a
Right.
tower, and with that information, we can put it into the drawing. So
I'd much rather have him get in direct contact with you because you know the questions to ask.
Right.
I'm just caught. I have no idea. what to
You
ask.
have a contact with CCS, obviously.
Yeah, I have not worked with him specifically, but I know he is, and so it's not a big deal. We've worked with our tower companies before.
All right, if you could follow up on that, Jeff, again, with meeting the needs of potential fire and certainly police is the baseline on that. So on February 12th, I get on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen to provide them with an update. Remarkably, December and January are coming to a close, and we're going to be approaching 90 days. So I put together a binder. I've sent this out electronically. It's basically a record. It's a record of what we've done. And the first few tabs are for convenience. It's duplicate because documents that came in at a meeting are still under the meeting tab. But for presentation to the Board of Selectmen, having a current schedule, having a current site plan, having a current floor plan up front was going to be easier. I posted it as a joint meeting between this committee and the Board of Selectmen so that if more than one of us show up, we don't have an inadvertent quorum. I think it's really going to be more of a quick update. The Board of Selectmen gets every communication that comes in and out of the committee. This just, I think, starts again to add to more permanent record for them. And their charge is going to be very simple. Where are you on budget? Where are you on schedule? So, with everyone's permission, I'm just going to finalize this. I'm going to update some of the, I did this quickly last night, inserting the new site plans versus, you know, the original one, and same thing on the floor plans. But, so with your permission, I'll just put that together and want to get it bound up and get it out to the,
Is the estimate probable cost going to be?
well, that, we're going to insert, right now, it's just the one we had. We're going to go over what that is. If that becomes available before I have to get this bound, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just convey the number.
Right.
Okay, because there's a tab in here for,
It just will have been estimated and it won't have been,
tab 4, we're at that 6.7 number, and
we just won't have all seen it before it gets.
well, no, everything that's in this right now, you have seen.
It's the draft you sent us the other day.
Right, but if if you're working on it and it gets updated, is the current updated that we have yet to receive going to be put in there?
The only thing that would be added, when it becomes available, would be a new estimate of probable cost.
Right, so that's all I'm
And
saying.
that's, yeah, that would be the only
Okay.
The only thing, and it's certainly, you know, but we're just the clock to get this all bound up, and I think what we want to do is, we want to make some extra copies. Capital planning should be brought into the loop on this, because according to the bylaw, they need to be part of that. And it may not be a bad idea to send it off to the planning board as well. Once we're getting these bound up, it gives everybody kind of a basis. To change gears quickly, we're going to quit getting into scheduling hearings with the different committees. One of the things I'm going to suggest to the Board of Selectmen is holding joint meetings, where Concom and Planning Board are a joint meeting. We may not be able to solve or address all the issues, but we will then consolidate the public notice period to just 2 weeks for both committees. And it can be tabled and continued. But at that point, we're just gonna be dealing with both committees at the same time, which I think will be highly efficient for us and help us on the schedule.
Yeah, we're targeting right now late May for the application and then hearings beginning in June.
Okay.
So just to give you an update of where that.
I think one of the big things we want to do is as soon as you can get your engineer to reverse this layout, we can incorporate that on the survey plan, so we can start circulating that with, I mean, at one point, we're gonna need a technical meeting between planning and Concom.
And we have that at least planned for late April.
Okay. I'd like to get this plan to them in the next couple of weeks so they can kick that around, just.
Yep.
I think it works better moving the building further. We're getting away from the 100-year floodplain. Okay. All right, anything else before we get into, the only communications have been internally from the chief and from Jeff and from Kevin. There's been no citizens communications. But before we open this up to discussion with the citizens, any other recap, anyone? Eric, anything you want to add?
No, but I mean, you had started an equipment and furniture inventory list, and now we have specific rooms. So that list just needs to be updated with the actual room names to track, right?
So I think what had happened is, what I remember is, Bob, you had maybe sent something out to the chief to start to figure out what.
I just created a sample spreadsheet so that
Yeah.
somehow we can give you,
And that's what I was gonna say, that information would be super helpful right now as we are trying to now get into the phase of finalizing the room layout.
I'll get you,
So as soon as you have that.
yeah, furniture in the chief, deputy chiefs, detective, sergeant, training room, all that furniture can be repurposed, can be brought right over.
Great.
I'll get you the measurements on all those, I'll email it off to you so you can figure out what you want.
So on the sheet, the room names might not be exact. So
Yeah,
if you
what I'll do, I saw
use
the
room
way,
names on the
I saw the
page.
way Bob set up the spreadsheet,
Yep.
and I'll set up an Excel spreadsheet with the
Okay.
exact room names and the measurements and.
however, I just wanted to give you something, a
Yep.
starting.
Oh,
point.
absolutely, I appreciate it.
The big thing is evaluate your seating. Your
Yes.
desk may be okay, but your seating could be,
Right.
yeah, and this is the time when it's important to get seating upgraded. That's what happens.
Believe me, I have a company.
I know, but you know my point, we're all.
I know exactly what
Having
you're talking.
30-year-old chairs.
And I would echo that too, I know you wanna protect the budget, but don't be conservative on the likely use, lifespan of some of the furniture that you have, particularly the seating. And Bob's right, your desk can probably last a lot longer than the chairs will.
Right.
And I think too, the furniture component of this is not gonna be exorbitant. And even if it's handled outside the budget, it could be something we have to
There are
address.
things that come up, like
Yeah.
seating and dispatch. I mean, those seats they're 24/7. They
Sure.
use. So we replace those within our budget, every year. So, I mean, there are certain things with furniture that, I'll be able to absorb in my operating budget as we go along, but some of the major things that we can carry over to the new building, we absolutely will.
Sure.
Save money where we can.
Great.
All right, well, why don't we open this up to our real bosses, the residents of Newbury. What I'm gonna ask is that I know it's a pain, you gotta get up, say your name, your address. What we're doing also is, you can discuss anything that's on the agenda. If you have something beyond that, what I'd ask is you send it in the form of an email, we'll put it on the next, just so we don't get off base of what we worked on today. But so anything beyond today, if you send us an email as a communication, automatically gets on the schedule for the next meeting, the communications.
Yeah. Craig Wolf, 144 Orchard Street. I have a question for the chief. Is Seabrook gonna kick in for the tower work?
I haven't discussed that with them, but that's a great question, and I will discuss that with them. I also have slated to discuss generator relocation. Seabrook currently paid for and maintains
Right.
the emergency generator, so I'd like to carry that over to the new building. And once we have the building size and
Sure.
whatever electrical load the building has, I'll know what size generator to discuss with them.
Great, thank you, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Tom?
Other than Main Street, is the Sally Port regulated size-wise? And that's just a cruiser pulls in there and they take the prisoner out?
It's gotta be big enough for an
Yes.
ambulance.
It's gotta be big enough for an ambulance and a stretcher.
And also too, there's a eye washing station,
Yeah.
that, there's other
Decontamination.
components to it, Tony, that will get plugged in, so that it,
Yeah, Sally ports are generally oversized because if a prisoner or somebody gets ill, the ambulance has to come in, be able to open the doors, get a stretcher out, and get that person through there. There's also a decontamination station. When we bring people in that are contaminated, we have to wash them down in there. There's a lot more to the Sally port. That's why the garage can be a lot smaller. You're just pulling a vehicle in, but the Sally port has to be
I
larger.
didn't know if it could gain some space inside by.
Well, you still have to have the room to, when your cruiser's in there, to have the doors fully extended.
Sure.
A lot of people that come into those areas, they don't go in there willingly, so I mean, you have to have a little room to operate.
All right, that's.
picture two guys Mike size on each side of you trying to walk
Yeah,
around
exactly.
through it. That's kind of the,
Just that curious.
yeah, no, it's a team effort here, mining this down. Hi, Fred.
I just had a couple of questions. I don't know if you're at the point or not, but what is the exterior dimensions?
Exterior dimensions, good question, because we expanded it a little bit. I think it might be close to 100 feet, 100 feet long by 48 feet wide. Or a little bit under that.
I'm always focused on the exterior,
Yep.
how it looks. So,
Fred, let me say this. We are discussing, it's not on the agenda today for
Okay.
exterior. I'll add it to the agenda if you want at the next meeting. What we're trying to do is whatever we've gone over today, just keep the discussion and focus on what's on our agenda. But I'll add it for the next meeting if you want. for
would this
exterior.
time have the pitch of the building?
No.
It's,
All right.
yeah, we're still, that's probably 30 days out.
Okay.
30, 45 days out, I'd say, but it's, the progress we've made today just by getting the site plan in some
Okay, I don't want to get
direction.
ahead of myself here.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you're in the right order.
Okay.
You're an overachiever, you're a little ahead of the curve here today. Anything else?
What is the gear room?
So the gear, the room that's labeled gear room is all the equipment for the police department that's not stored in their typical personnel lockers. In normal police stations, I shouldn't say normal, in larger police stations, we might have multiple gear rooms with different functions. In this police station, we're trying to do everything in a very small footprint. So we have one gear room, and in fact, now we've moved the gear storage cabinets into the garage. So it's not even a gear room anymore, now it's a gear storage in the garage.
There will be an update to this particular plan as we were discussing here that where reports and interviews are being reversed, the gear room was being really relocated, but we're gonna reallocate that space for trying to pick up a bathroom and IT and stuff like that. So again, we're still kind of moving the pieces around,
Yeah.
but we're at the 80% stage at this point. Now it's the last 20% to try to get it right. All right, the next scheduled meeting is Friday, February 8th, 7 a.m. here. That's on the schedule that Jeff has prepared. Does that still work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
I won't be able to be here,
Okay.
because that's my conflict.
Yeah,
every month.
well, you know what we'll do is Jeff, and we'll rely on Jeff and Kevin's notes to get them over to you. We should be able to get a copy of the film
think Susan.
Okay, well then you can compile your meeting notes from there, beauty of public TV. All right, so do we have a motion to adjourn? There's no other question.
Make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody.